All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the show. Uh, our special guest this week is me. Mwahaha. I'm a special guest on my own show, which is, of course, why you all watch me. Um, so, joining me this week, I have my host and co-host, as always. It's gonna be Peter and Pineapple, the newest Dutch member of our show, Pineapple. Uh, And then we also have Nestle, who is one of my script editors.
Hello, good to be back. Also,
That's
curious, Peter, is the name actually a pineapple, or are you translating the name, the true name? Hmm. So, so you didn't name him
it's
or
a
her.
big bad mama says Peter is muted.
Oh, yes, I was. My bad. You have to pay attention. If you don't bite me, then I'll do things right. Okay?
Mhm. But so you didn't name him like ananas in Dutch. Like ananas
Yes.
is the Dutch word for pineapple,
Yes.
and also
Really?
the genus, and also the genus name for the species pineapple as well.
That's pretty close to what they say in
Yeah.
French.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
There's a joke. I saw a joke online that was if you take the B out of banana, you get pineapple, and that made me laugh. Um,
What?
it's like hey Peter, do you know
No,
I got
it's
one more joke
bananas.
for you.
It's bananas, not
Oh, take the
banana.
B out of bananas, you get a
Yes.
pineapple.
Yeah.
Another joke for you, Peter. Why do French people only eat one egg?
I haven't. Oh, one is enough.
Because one is enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Hmm. Um, hello, everybody. Hello, Big Bad Mama, Vesta Freya, Alex Markle, Dragon Spartan 90 official. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have all you guys and gals. Um, well, if this were Dapper's show, we would take a drink for Peter as a professional. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I did anticipate this because I sent out a tweet and I don't know what it is, a butterfly on Blue Sky? Oh, it is. He says yes. So, and on Facebook, that I now have another distraction for when I'm streaming. So it's not my fault. I'm blaming it all on Pineapple. Anything
you're just
goes wrong.
attracting all the animals.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the first order of business before we get into the videos today is I wanted to recap a bit of news that was unsealed, I believe, fairly late last night. Or at least I saw the first news about it late last night. Maybe it was unveiled before that. Um, and it was not news that was at all shocking or surprising. And the news is that this media company, which is a conservative media company called Tenet Media, it has been paid millions of dollars, upwards of $10 million, by Russian state media to essentially preach Russian misinformation and Russian propaganda. And as at present, the federal indictment only indicates that the head of Tenet Media actually intentionally um, knew, or took the money and knew about why they were taking the money. But so far, the commentators who received the money claim to not know or have not known about where the money came from. So um, I don't know whether or not I believe that, but it's
Yeah.
not
So,
also
so
go ahead.
at, so at best they are useful idiots. At worst they are
Correct.
willing puppets. Yeah.
I mean, it is kind of funny that the response or the defense of them would be no, they weren't paid to say that. They actually believe it. Which I mean, okay.
Well, that's in a way that's doubly damning, because then
Correct.
you are a puppet and you're stupid.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And so it's not at all surprising. However, it I felt that it kind of adds to my general sort of feeling about the large organizations that deal in misinformation, whether it's the tobacco industry lying about the effects of smoking with regard to cancer, or whether it's Exxon claiming that climate change isn't caused by the burning of fossil fuels, or whether it's Fox News lying that the election was stolen, even though they knew that it wasn't. In all these cases, the individuals who either originate or the loudest peddlers of these conspiracies knew that they were wrong and lied anyways, for money, of course, in every case. So I don't know. It's kind of a black pill to see that sort of stuff. On the one hand, it's very funny, but on the other hand, it's like, well, dang, now we know that they don't believe what they say. So, what do you do about that, right? Yes, correct, Alex Markle. Meanwhile, our Soros checks have not arrived. Yes, exactly. So I don't know. It's kind of a grim feeling to recognize that the people who originate conspiracies don't believe them. They just do it for money. But anyways, so that's
Which is a bit ironic, because in a way that is also a bit conspiratorial, if I may say, to accept money behind the scenes like that.
Well, in a sense,
Yeah.
sure. I mean, it's a conspiracy in the literal sense of the word, right? As in, like, a group of people making a plan, right? Like, 9/11 was at its core a conspiracy. It was perpetrated by a group of people who went and carried out a set of actions that led to, the attack that we call 9/11. And so in this case, if you look at like the Dominion lawsuit, for instance, which Fox News settled because they realized they'd have to go to court and be grilled over the texts that were subpoenaed, in which they said, we know the election's not being stolen, but we're losing viewers to OAN and Newsmax, so we have to run with the story. But I mean, like, we have the documented evidence of that. I mean, they settled for hundreds of millions of dollars as a result. The ExxonMobil in 1977, had a group of climate scientists. They assembled a panel to tell them what the effects of burning fossil fuels were 11 years before the first governmental panel on climate change was assembled by, I think it was the U.S. government. So in each of these cases, like, they knowingly lied, and that's kind of the worst thing. It's worse that they knowingly lied, because their followers, the people who they disseminate this information to, fully believe them, right? The people who claim, now it's still that, like, the 2020 election was stolen, people who claim that climate change is, fake or gay or whatever, like, these people actually believe that. It's not like they're also part of the, lie or whatever. And so that's, I don't know. It's kind of aren't OAN and other news sites also being sued by Dominion? Possibly. I wouldn't be surprised. So, yeah. So anyway, okay. Well, before we get into the first video, so we are going to continue with the evolution is a religion of science. I actually forgot, and so I had to change the name of the video right before we went live because I thought when Peter and I talked about the Catholic evolutionist, or sorry, the Catholic creationist who was debunking evolution or whatever. I thought it was the Brazilian guy with the debunker, but no, it wasn't our Duck Dynasty reject friend. It was a different group of Catholics who were creationists, which is odd because the vast majority of Catholics accept evolution. So it's rather unusual for modern Catholics to be creationists.
Yes.
It's pretty abnormal. And so I had to change the title. I did interact with. I messaged Dr. Romulo, who was the Brazilian guy, the Brazilian zoologist. He was quite busy at the time. At some point I'll send him another message, see how he's doing. If he'd be able to come on, we'll see. DM Jurassic Park was a documentary wing. I'm here. You can start now. Okay, we will start now.
So DM Jurassic Park was a documentary. Thank you. Have you been looking over my shoulder? Because I just sent Jackson a clip of a Young Earth Creationist documentary that starts with a clip of Jurassic Park, no less. So
yeah, one that we'll be watching at some point.
Can we skip that just in case it gets copyrighted or something?
Oh, we might have to, yeah.
Well, no. So it doesn't actually show a clip from Jurassic Park. It shows a kind of a Jurassic Park children's playset or something instead. I think even they thought let's not do that.
Let's not anger the YouTube gods.
The YouTube gods.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do not want to anger them.
Oh, and by the way, native atheist asked. I thought TTOR left YouTube. Yes, he did, but this particular part of the review was posted on YouTube. So
yeah, I think he posts videos. So he doesn't stream to YouTube. He streams to Rumble, and then he posts the videos later on YouTube and a number of other sites.
The weird thing is, he started the stream on YouTube only to post in the chat that people needed to go watch on Rumble, which is weird.
Right. I had to make an account to go be part of that conversation. It was so not that like I have no interest in being on Rumble, so I had to go like set up an account to go do all that. Anyway, so TTOR. So if you'll harken back, he did a video about a few Twitter users, including myself. One of the posts that I made, which I still agree with, and I defended in the discussion we had. So we did a review of his video, and then following that review, I had a live conversation with him, and it was moderated by Brett Keane.
Manatee himself.
They have some wacky ideas about evolution, and we didn't talk about evolution very much. We spent most of the conversation talking about well, first a large part of it was he got mad that about some of our comments, and that
are you or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? That's basically the question.
Right.
The first part, yeah.
He got mad that I said his reasoning about the bill that is involving like hate speech towards like Jews or whatever. He was like, "Oh, well, this could be used against the Bible," and I said, "You have no evidence of that." And he said, "Well, hypothetically, it could." Then what are we even talking about? Like, hypothetically, anything could happen, you know. So anyway,
hypothetically, you can be sued for murder, even though you haven't committed murder. But hypothetically, you can be sued for murder.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Hypothetically, yeah. Hypothetically, you know, a dragon could just drop down out of the sky, but you know. So that part was kind of pointless. And then we talked about my well, he brought a couple of articles from, I don't know if it was like the Washington Post or New York Times or whatever. I don't remember. That were about like people can accidentally fall for misinformation if they're not an expert in a topic, which I remember specifically saying to him, "Well, aren't you a Young Earth creationist?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, it looks like it was right then, you know." So,
good night, folks.
Right? Yeah. So, well, you know, the article was like, doing your own research can actually be counterproductive. one of them was doing your own research can be counterproductive because if you don't know how to fact check sources, you can run across incorrect sources or misinformation, and you have no way to fact check it, or you don't know how to fact check it. And the other one was,
or you're just or you're just like not knowledgeable enough to actually understand the content. And one good example I can give is Raw Matt in his response to your video. Like he was reading like one paper that you cited, and I remember like he suggested that there was like you mentioned a paper about a translocation.
he thought the gene itself got moved, right?
Yeah, a gene fusion, and he read that paper, and he saw somehow, I don't know how he got this idea, but somehow he read that paper and assumed that the gene was like moving like a conveyor belt or something. Like I don't know how he possibly misunderstood that.
We are talking about the guy who famously did a video about an article that he found that dinosaurs helped build the pyramids. And he shows the actual article, and he shows the logo of the website that literally has a subtitle that says "Where Facts Don't Matter." It's every single article on that site is fantasy, is just a mockery. And he did an entire show about that article, how there are now scientists who think that it is plausible that they used dinosaurs to transport the large stones for the pyramids. This is Raw Matt. This is the guy where...
I mean, the breatharian, who only ate honey for several years, allegedly.
Wait, isn't that an oxymoron? A breatharian who ate?
Yeah. Well, he was a breatharian for a while, and then he switched to just eating honey for a while. I think he was doing the honey and locust diet or something like that. It just bananas, absolutely bananas. He's a crazy guy. I'm kind of surprised he's still kicking, if I'm honest.
And there's also one other, or actually two other things I can remember. Like he, at one point he believed that humans have only one inner ear bone and apes don't. Like apes have three inner ear bones, and that's why we are not related, even though we do have three inner ear bones, like all mammals do. And there's also one paper, like he cited one paper about the genomes of dogs and cats. The details I don't remember. But he cited a figure, like a percentage. And he assumed that the percentage was referring to the homology between dogs and cats. And that the percentage was rather low. But the percentage was actually referring to the coverage of a genomic sequence. So it was regarding the quality of sequencing, not regarding the homology between cats and dogs. It's so...
No one ever said he was smart,
Yeah. Now I like even though you can make fun of Raw Matt all day, the truth is the average person is not like, if I show this to one of my friends who is familiar with genomic sequencing or biology in general, like they also couldn't understand it. But the difference is Raw Matt thinks he knows better.
Right, he's claiming to be an expert. Right.
Yeah. That's the only difference. He has no humility. He is the Dunning-Kruger reincarnated, basically.
Correct. Yeah, the physical manifestation of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not just him. I mean, all of them over it. What did you call them? Strangling the truth. Yeah, they're all morons. So and that's why I don't watch any of their. I don't watch their content because I have much more important things to do with my time. I mean, like watching, paint dry or grass grow would be a more important usage of my time than watching their content. So,
I have a bird to stroke. Thing. Very important.
Yeah. That is more important than watching Strangling the Truth's content.
Yes, and I do want to say we have a rogue brain sample in the chat because he doesn't. He says that doesn't mean that I'm a moron, and I fully agree. We just call Artie special. That's it. The special.
So, given that background on the TTOR so far, following our debate, discussion, whatever you want to call it, he put out a video where he reviewed our discussion. It's only like 15 minutes, right? It's pretty short.
Well,
so we're just
well, I have to make a caveat because I don't want
okay.
that he's going to blame you, and we can't have that.
Okay.
Oh, he does an introduction and then says,
Mhm.
and here is my unfiltered opinion on my debate with Jackson Wheat. And then he starts talking about where people can find him, that he created a whole new platform because YouTube is a meanie and they kicked him because of the misinformation. And so I cut all of that out and just replaced it with a SpongeBob meme saying a few minutes later. So if he's going to be upset about that, I mean, if you say that this is going to be your unfiltered thing about Jackson Wheat, don't start talking about anything else.
No, that's absolutely how I felt about the intro.
Yes.
For our discussion was 7 minutes long.
Yes. And,
I sat there for 7 minutes.
No. As a graphic designer, I have to step in. It was probably less than a minute long, but it was on repeat.
Oh.
They showed the same thing over and over and over.
7 minutes later.
Yes. Yeah.
That's how I felt. I was actually... Well, so he said right before we went live, he said, I want to talk about the first 15 minutes of your video. And I was like, okay, I don't remember what we said in the first 15 minutes. So while the intro is running, I'm playing back our video on time speed, listening to it. I'm like, okay, all right, I got it now. And so that's why when he was like, you said this, I said, no, I didn't say that. And he went, oh, well, okay, well, anyway, and then moved on to something else. But okay.
He was
all
mad.
right.
He was mad with a certain co-host, someone who we shall not name, about saying some things.
I just want to say this, because I don't remember if I said it quite this way, or I may not have said this, but one of the things he did was he retweeted Stone Toss, and if you retweet Stone Toss, someone who is known to be, an anti-Semite, and homophobic and transphobic and all that sort of stuff, even if you're retweeting something of theirs that is not about that material, like, you are still supporting their overall message.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If I'm supporting someone, if I retweet someone, and then I find out the next day, oh, holy cow, they're homophobic or whatever, I'm going to pull that retweet. I'm not going to retweet it. Okay? Because despite the fact that people say, oh, retweets are not endorsements, unless you retweet something and say, I don't agree with this, like, you're kind of endorsing it. That's just kind of the nature of retweets.
It's also how people will perceive it. If you retweet it, it will mean that you think exactly like they do. So.
Right, exactly. Yeah, unless you say specifically, like, hey, I don't necessarily agree with this or whatever, then, like, you're just kind of agreeing with them. So, so anyway, alrighty. Without further ado, let's see what his review says.
Let's see.
Hello there, everyone. If you're watching this video,
Jesus
then you
Christ.
are part of the TTOR army, an army that is building itself up
my
one
heart
subscriber
skipped
at
a
a
beat
time.
when the audio
I know it's been a
peaked,
couple of weeks since I posted any videos, and this particular video is long overdue. But I was really busy with work, family life, and I started having computer problems right after I had this back and forth with Jackson Wheat. So this particular video that you are watching today is my initial thoughts, my off-the-cuff response to the conversation I had with Jackson Wheat on my most recent God TV radio live stream. However, if you would like me to do a more in-depth response to him, and you want me to respond to actual clips of the conversation that we had, you'll have to leave such a request in the comment section down below, and if enough of you make that request. I just may do that video in the future. But here are my initial thoughts, my off-the-cuff response to my conversation that I had with Jackson Wheat.
A few minutes later.
Now, with that being said, my initial off-the-cuff response to my conversation with Jackson Wheat goes as follows.
Okay.
One thing that I appreciated is that Jackson Wheat was willing to hear out my full views on the issue of Jews and anti-Semitism, and he got to learn firsthand that I condemn bigotry not just against Jews, but against all people. So hopefully moving forward, if I ever come up in a discussion on his channel, he won't allow his co-hosts to smear me as being an anti-Semitic person simply because I share a few comics from Stone Toss
for a moment. Okay, let's pause for a moment.
Again, I don't think any of us call him anti-Semitic, but I might be wrong.
Okay, so he said, to me in our discussion, he's like, I have no hatred towards Jews. Okay, that's fine. You can say that. When you are, at the same time, though, if you're retweeting Stone Toss comics, if you're retweeting someone who is a known anti-Semite,
it's a red flag at the very least.
It is a red flag, and that's actually, I believe, what I said. I said it's a red flag to see Stone Toss comics as one of the first posts on his Twitter. I get that. I get that he says he is not bigoted against any groups of people. I get that. I understand you said that, but at the same time, you can't just post Stone Toss comics with no hey, I don't agree with these opinions of his, because otherwise people are just going to see that and go, oh, he agrees with Stone Toss. And that's kind of where I was coming from when I said that. So he is. Additionally, one of the things that we had to keep going over was that he was trying to say that, and this is what happened in our first video, and I still stand behind this, and I stood behind it in the conversation, that saying, if you are talking about history, right, and you say this event happened in history, there's nothing wrong with that. The issue is, as the bill referred to, using an event in history to discriminate against people. That was the whole point. And his response was, well, hypothetically, they could, pull the Bible from public life, they being the government, or probably, I don't know, I guess the government, would pull the Bible from daily life because, it has the section where the Jews turn Jesus over and he gets crucified. The pointing out that some historical event happened has nothing to do with discriminating against Jews or people of Israel based on that event. That's literally what the document says. So I did not follow this line of logic, which is why he had to say, well, hypothetically, someone could potentially in the future use it to do, come on. No. Unless you have some actual evidence or argumentation in favor of this idea, I don't care. So, anyway.
Then, another thing that I found to be very enlightening is that Jackson Wheat gave us a bunch of specific examples of what he feels is evidence for evolution. And this is good because this gives creationists and Christians like myself the opportunity to look into what he says and make some potential responses to it. Another good thing I would say about the conversation we had is that Jackson...
Okay, just for the record, when we had the conversation about evolution, which was the last 15 or so minutes, maybe 20 minutes of it, it was a very small portion of our overall conversation.
It was.
He had nothing to say about any of the examples I cited. Every single example I cited, he just kind of went, okay, well, anyway, moving on to the next thing. And it's
what about this?
Yeah, he said, well, what about this? I said, well, okay, we can talk about this. I'm very aware of all this data. Okay, well, there's this other thing. Okay, it's fine. It is fine to not know about evolution or not know about something in science. There's lots of fields of science I know nothing about. I don't know a lot about physics or geology or chemistry. That's fine. But what that also means is you can't take, or you shouldn't take hard opinions, hard positions on things if you don't know anything about them. Like if someone asks me like, well, what do you think about the Big Bang? My response is going to be, well, that is currently the consensus of the relevant experts, the cosmologists, the physicists who have worked all this out. That is the consensus of experts. So I'm going to defer to that. I'm not familiar with all the math that's behind it. But like, if that changes, then it changes. That's fine. I don't care. I have no stake in this.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah, Nestle.
That's also one problem I have with the way he phrased his sentence. Like he says, like, oh, it gives like Jackson, your answers to him gives him, like he says, it gives me the opportunity to dive into this and come up with potential responses. Which to me, it implies that he is like he says responses instead of, oh, it allows me to learn something new, perhaps. He goes directly into responses. So to me, it seems like he's already coming from a predetermined position, basically. He just wants to respond to you. That's the only thing he's focused on, apparently. Maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully, I'm wrong about that.
Maybe he'll look into the data and he'll go, oh, well, okay, this changes my position on young Earth creationism. Who knows? We'll find out. All right, let's keep rolling.
Wheat was willing to admit that evolution was a worldview through which him and his camp interpret the data
I sure did not
of the
say
observational world.
I did
and
not
that's
say
very
that.
important because for the most part, atheists and evolutionists, when you point out to them that, hey, you have a worldview through which you interpret everything you see in the world through, and this is basically the framework you use in science, because that's really what evolution is. It's a...
This is something I hate. I'm sorry. I stopped it, but this is just something I hate. When you hear a Christian or any theist use the word worldview, it has different connotations than the ones he just mentioned. This is why I always say I do not have a worldview. I view the world with the best information that I can get. That's it. It's not a worldview. A worldview comes with specific things that you will have to believe, specific presuppositions that will trump anything science says, and I don't have that. So
I strongly object to the idea that I have an evolutionary worldview. I don't even know what that means.
It doesn't mean anything.
That's like a creationist cartoon.
I think it's just a more clever way to phrase you have an evolutionary bias. Like the fact that you are an evolutionist, quote unquote.
Of course, right? Because
that makes you biased,
right?
And that's what they mean by a worldview. Yeah, it's just as Peter says. Like they will assume that you already have like a predetermined conclusion, that you already have a set of presuppositions, and they do that because they are the ones who are having a different set of presuppositions already. So it's a way of like how do you call it? Psychological projection, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I never agreed with that. I never would have agreed with that. That's a gross mischaracterization of my position. But anyway, okay.
Scientific model that evolutionists and atheists use to interpret all of the scientific data through. Most atheists and evolutionists are not willing to admit this, but Jackson Wheat was willing to admit it, and so I have to give him kudos for being honest about that, because for some reason, a lot of atheists and evolutionists just aren't, and they don't like to talk about that. It's really a strange thing indeed. Jackson Wheat talked about it like it was no big deal.
Like what? That's a good boss frame, sorry. But like, what did you like? I don't remember you saying anything about worldviews. Like maybe
I genuinely
you say
don't even remember talking about that. I could be wrong, but saying
like, I think you definitely didn't say that evolutionism is a worldview that you have.
That's not a sentence that would ever come out of my mouth, as far as I'm aware. Like that doesn't sound like something I would say. I'm strongly skeptical of the idea that I admitted that like I have a bias through which I interpret all evidence. Like,
Yeah.
who
Like-
would admit to that? Like, genuinely,
Yeah.
who would say that? Like, that's
Like
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know what part of our conversation is being referenced here. Maybe I should go back and re-listen to it. But like, I have no idea what he's talking about here.
Like I have as much of an evolutionary worldview as I have a gravitational worldview or a
Right.
Yes.
germ disease worldview. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
No, this
it's
is
silly.
bananas.
It's very silly.
Yeah, when a theist uses the word worldview, it comes with baggage, which is why I always deny that I have a worldview. Not in that sense, anyway.
Unless I don't remember. Maybe he asked like, are you a like philosophical naturalist or something? In which case, I would say yes to that. And if you want to say like philosophical naturalism isn't a worldview though, it's a methodology for understanding the world. You could say it is one methodology for interpreting the world, but that doesn't necessarily lead you to any particular conclusions other than that you can't like say anything about the supernatural. I mean, like I wouldn't call that a worldview. Your worldview would be like naturalism would be like the worldview, but naturalism doesn't on its own entail evolution. Evolution is a product of the process of science. It's not necessarily a product of naturalism. So yeah, that just doesn't. None of that makes any sense. Okay.
Of course,
anyway.
not everything was good.
Yeah, why does this guy shout this much? I mean, he's already eating the microphone, and then every single time he starts at a high volume, and then it sinks in.
About what Jackson Wheat did. One thing that I noticed in particular is that every time Brett Keane or I would attempt to phrase what the evolutionary worldview teaches in a way that most people can understand, in other words, we simplified what the teaching is so that people could understand what it was saying. Every time we would do this, Jackson would respond by saying in some form or another that what we were saying about evolution and what it teaches is not accurate. And then he would proceed to go into a deep dive.
Oh, it gets worse.
I do want to.
It gets
I do want
worse.
to hear out the rest of the sentence. I do want to hear it.
Yeah.
Into a specific piece of evidence for evolution, and he would use a lot of big words that most people don't have in their everyday vernacular. So it was really hard to follow along with him because he's going into stuff that most.
See?
Pause. Okay.
I told you.
Dear Christ! Oh my God,
Jackson, how dare you use big words?
Oh my God!
How dare you?
Oh, come on, man! Come on! If you're gonna have me on, and because you like, I never invite people on. I think, or at least I don't usually invite people on like not knowing literally anything about them. I guess we have done that before. We did that with the open mic thing, but this was a conversation that he and I set up in advance, right? This wasn't just a spur of the moment, let's bring someone on and chat with them. I'm 95% sure that he, had time to go and look up either my Twitter or my YouTube or whatever. I mean, after all, he did interact with me on Twitter. So he had to have known that biology is my background. It literally says on my Twitter bio, master's in biology. And then first of all, the simplification, that there's a way to simplify things. The way that he and Brett would quote simplify things was they would literally say things that were incorrect. Brett said that a whale turned into a dog, which turned into a whale, which I guess was his hyperbolic oversimplification of the process by which lobe-finned fish evolved into terrestrial vertebrates, which then later evolved into whales. Those are completely
pretty
different.
much the same thing. Like you're splitting hairs for no reason.
Right, of course. They're exactly the same. Yeah, a whale turned into a dog, which turned back into a whale. Yeah, exactly. I don't. And then whenever he would say, or for instance, he would say, "Oh well," he mentioned the Cambrian, and I was very excited when he said that because he said, "Oh well, the creatures of the Cambrian just pop up out of nowhere," and I said, No, they don't. The creatures of the Cambrian are
And then
descended from the
you name
creatures
this
of the
species, and then you name
Ediacaran.
that
And,
species.
right, then we have these like stem bilaterians that are in the Ediacaran. Then before that we have stem eumetazoans. Prior to that, then prior to that we have like early the earliest sponge fossils, and then prior to that we have earlier eukaryote fossils. Like, you can't, if you're going to have a debate about evolution, or a discussion, whatever you want to call it, if you're going to have a discussion about evolution and you're going to say a thing like the Cambrian animals just pop up out of nowhere, you cannot be shocked when someone has a response to that includes terms that are normal in the paleontological literature. You cannot be shocked by that. That's not how that works. You can't be like, oh, I said a thing and he responded with big scary words. Like, come on, dude.
In all fairness,
very...
I watched the whole thing live, and so there were parts where you were going into specific species and naming those by their original names, but for the most part, I thought that you explained everything pretty well with words that everyone who has had any form of education in biology, they should be familiar with the terms he used.
You would think so.
Yes.
The way that I approach discussions is, I'm going in, if someone wants to debate with me on evolution, the process of evolution, or the way that evolution is played out in deep time, I'm going to go into it and I'm going to use all the terminology that exists on this topic. And I'm going to use it because this is what the scientists use. And if you want to argue with me about this topic, I expect you to know what the scientists say about this topic. I feel like that is a reasonable expectation. Yes. If your claim is that all the scientists are wrong and that you've read some literature or a book or something that indicates to you why the scientists are wrong, then I feel it is a reasonable expectation to go into that discussion and say, and like use the terminology of that field. I feel that's reasonable.
Yes.
And also, am I being wrong on that?
No, and also when this happens to me, I will ask if there's something that I don't understand, or if there are words used that I don't understand, I'm just simply ask, can you explain, because I'm not familiar with this and this. That's what he could have done. And now we lost Jackson, so there
he is.
My mouse keeps jumping and it accidentally hit the refresh button. My apologies. Okay, anyway, you were saying?
Yeah, so when that happens to me, what I do is I ask for an explanation. If there are words used that I'm not familiar with, then I can ask for an explanation. It's not that you want to baffle people by using specific terminology. And he could have said anything. My biggest grief with the whole thing was, first of all, Brett Keane was there to moderate, which he didn't do, because at some point it was 2 against 1, which I'm okay with that. Well, yeah, it isn't a problem. It isn't a problem, but I think it is a problem when you go into a show and one of the people there is the moderator. The moderator isn't there to ask questions. The moderator is there to moderate.
Peter, one of my favorite YouTubers goes in and does a lot of debates with other people, and sometimes he'll enter rooms that are 4-on-1 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, if it turns it, and typically, in fairness,
I do that a few times a week.
Typically my show, when we have Dapper on, or if it's Nestling and me and we're talking to a creationist, it usually is 2-on-1. So,
yes.
In fairness,
fairness
to them.
That's what I said.
I usually have shows that are 2-on-1. So
on my show, when I talk to a theist, it's always 2-on-1 because I have a blind spot. I've never been religious. So all of my co-hosts have been religious at one point in their lives. So they can understand certain things better than I can. I just think that if you are a moderator, you're a moderator. If you want to ask a question, you can ask. If you can ask a single question, but that should be it.
Yeah, I guess that's
And
fair.
and my biggest problem with everything was that TTOR did not acknowledge any of the things you said. He would say something, you would respond, and then he would move on. Okay, let's move on to the next thing you said.
It's whack-a-mole.
Dude,
yeah.
respond. Don't wait until you can make a response video so you can look stuff up. If you claim to know that people are wrong, you should have a rebuttal off the cuff. And you don't need...
And this...
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I don't want to cut you. I don't want to cut you off. Sorry about that.
No, it's no problem. I just...
All right.
It aggravated me. That's a thing that he does. He won't acknowledge, and Brett Keane is a champion of that as well.
Yeah, what were you gonna say, Nestling?
This is like what Peter said about like he is not engaging with your argument, and I feel this is also like right here when at the moment you stopped is another argument or another example of this where he doesn't engage with your argument. Like again, how does he respond to your corrections? He says his defense is, "Oh, I was just simplifying things, and you are making things too complicated." That is not engaging with arguments. That's just being salty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so one of my jobs is I'm a professor. And so when my students have a question, if they say, hey, can you explain this for me? I'm not quite getting it. I have no problem explaining something. That's literally your job as a professor, is to explain things for students so that, that they can understand it and then they can, take the test and move on with their life. Like that's your job as a professor. So whenever I'm in a discussion, if someone says something I don't understand, I'm going to say, can you please clarify for me? Or I'm sorry, what do you mean? And likewise, I'm going to do the same thing. Yeah, I'm like, you can always just stop me anytime and go, hold on, what is this word? And I'm going to say, oh, well, that's what this means. I don't have a problem doing that. I have no issue with that. I nothing against it, so if he really wanted, so this complaint that like, oh, Jackson drilled down and got way too specific with blah, but whatever. If you have a question and you want to ask me about a thing, just ask me. That's fine. I don't care. That's the whole reason I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, I do the same thing when I go on a theist channel and they talk about things that they interpret in a certain way in the Bible. And if there's something that I don't understand, I ask them to clarify because that's how you learn.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't matter whether or not it's about science or it's about theology or whether it's about your specific way of interpreting the Bible. It doesn't matter. Not at all. And
you can always, everybody can always ask me stuff. I'm fine with that.
You should be happy that you have someone there who's knowledgeable on the topic, and then you can ask questions. And then if you don't have a response, at least you will have a video where you ask questions, got a reply, and then you can go look up whether or not Jackson told the truth, whether or not he was wrong about something. And yes, you have to go look a little bit further than Answers in Genesis, CMI, and Kent Hovind. And I won't even mention the banana guy, but try and figure out whether or not the science is correct. And if it isn't, then come back and attack. Because that's fine. I mean, I screwed up. I screwed up on my shows and had to apologize to a person that said, yes, I was wrong. So,
we had one show. I've done exactly one show where Dapper and I went over a paper with a creationist. Now, it happened to be the most annoying creationist on the internet. But we did it. And by the end of the paper, by the time we went through it, she was like, oh, okay, I guess this is evidence for evolution. But are you sure this really occurs all that often? And we were like, yes.
I remember that one. That was the one where you accidentally sent in the wrong paper.
I sure did.
Yes.
I sent in the wrong paper, but it was fine because I mean we looked at the paper we looked at was still very good. So
The thing is,
know.
she was adamant that she wanted to talk about this specific paper only. And
I'm
when
getting
you
heated just
did,
thinking about it.
when you did, after what was it, 45 minutes in, she wanted to talk about the paper that you wanted to talk about initially. That says a lot. I'm just saying.
I'm getting heated just thinking about it. Anyway, all right, we can keep going.
People have never heard of or talk about when it comes to topics like origins. He did this on a regular basis, and the reason why he did it is the reason why, while a lot of atheists and evolutionists respond in a similar manner every time a creationist like myself attempts to put the teachings of the atheistic evolutionary worldview into a language that people in the common world.
Okay, I have to pause. It's not an atheistic evolutionist worldview. It is a worldview that most Christians hold.
Yep.
So
exactly.
don't call it atheistic, because it's only a minor, tiny amount of Christians who reject science. And those are the young Earth creationists.
It's just easier to pillory it if it's atheist, if it's atheistic evolution. Just easier to make fun of it and attack it. So
yes. So
if Brett had at least said fish became amphibians, which then became reptiles, which then became mammals, and then that became like whales, then whales were one of the mammals that evolved from that. That would have been a really easy way to explain it. I don't have an issue with that. I would say, yeah, okay, that's a rough but reasonable explanation of the process. But he didn't say that. He said a whale became a dog, which became a whale.
Yes.
That is nowhere similar to like fish to amphibian to reptile to mammal. Those are nowhere near similar. So no.
I loved how you stuck to that and kept asking him to explain where the first whale came from and how a whale became a dog and then became a whale again, where he had read this, and he didn't want to say anything about it.
The other thing that was really funny to me was TTOR acknowledged that speciation happens, but Brett kept saying speciation doesn't happen, and I kept pointing that out. I said, "Well, hold on a second. You just said speciation happens, but Brett's saying it doesn't. So which is it? I'm confused."
Yeah.
And they didn't want to.
You're like Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV,
Yeah, I was like, hold on a second. Wait a minute. That's not what you just said.
Yeah, the whale becoming a dog, becoming a whale, that was a thing. That was an ongoing thing.
That is a terrible representation. That is the worst kind of representation. You could have at least just said a fish. Saying a fish became a dog, became a whale is slightly more correct than than a whale became a dog, became a whale. It's just all right.
Anyway, I hope he gets to a different arguments besides complaining about you correcting him. So I hope he will move on eventually.
Yeah, all right. Let's keep on going.
Can understand, because if people understood what the evolutionary worldview really taught, they would realize how crazy and insane it is and how unscientific it is, and they would not accept it. And vice versa.
Wait. Hold on. Wait a second. I'm confused now. Because is it the fact that he seems to be saying two different things here, which seem to me irreconcilable? Because on the one hand, he said I got way too technical, and that I was drilling into information that was way above the normal person's head, and that was making it difficult to understand. But then he's saying that he was intentionally oversimplifying or just simplifying to make it more understandable. But at the same time, if someone does actually understand it, then it's insane. I'm baffled by this kind of back and forth. It's baffling to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because he did say that. He said I made it way too complicated,
Yes.
And now he's like, so that's why we simplified it, because if people actually understand what it means, it doesn't make any sense. But he just said he didn't
No.
understand.
I think he's accusing you of making things like on purpose. He's accusing you of making
I'm
things
over complexifying.
That wasn't the
He's
case.
accusing you to make things too complicated because
Ah.
you want to hide the fact that evolution is all ridiculous.
I want to baffle them with baloney, huh?
Yeah, basically,
so
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
but if you overcomplicated things, but he still understood, and then he simplified it, that says a lot about his audience that he has to do that.
Yeah, so now he's basically saying, why won't you allow me to strawman you? Like, why won't you allow
Basically, yeah.
Which is what he did several times, by the way. And Jackson had to correct him several times. That's not what I said. I said the exact opposite. I distinctly remember that happening at least 2 times. So.
Yep. Exactly. So yeah. Nope. No, this is ridiculous. Okay. Anyway.
If they were allowed to know what the creationism claims are as far as young earth creationism goes and the evidence that supports those, there's actually a number of people in the world who would reject evolution and accept creationism on a basis of comparing and contrasting evidences for each. This is something that Eugenie Scott literally talked about back in the late 90s, I think it was, or maybe it was the early 2000s. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here in this short video is that when it was brought to Jackson Wheat's attention by myself that creationists like myself accept the idea that species can turn into another species over time, and that it was other types of evolution that we rejected, such as macroevolution, Jackson Wheat would go right back into the evolutionist talking point that creationists like me reject the concept of one species turning into another. Microevolution.
No.
I literally explained this to him, and I explained the historical concept,
several times.
Historical conception of these terms. Yes, multiple times. The change of one species to another, the process of speciation, is macroevolution. That is not microevolution. That term, and I literally explained the history of that term to him in discussion.
Yes.
And I don't even remember if he responded to that or not. I don't remember. But like that is macroevolution. That's definitionally macroevolution, because of the debate that the mutationists and the Darwinists were having back in the 1920s. Like, it just this is not a talking point. This is, you just don't know history. And also, Brett Keane said species don't change into new species. So, like, your own side is not in agreement with you. The moderator, or the would-be moderator, the should-be moderator, disagreed. And I kept pointing this out. And TTOR would just kind of, like, gloss over it. Like, what?
I also is it Eugene Scott or Eugenie Scott?
Eugenie.
Eugenie?
Because it's a woman. Yeah, Eugenie.
Yeah.
She's an older woman.
Oh yes, you're right.
It's someone I miss dearly. She used to do talks on all kinds of conventions. She did a talk for Google, and she's brilliant in explaining things and
I have one
making fun of young Earth creationism as well.
Yeah, she did a lot of great work.
Yes.
In the early aughts about, in the aughts really, about like combating creationism, covering the Dover case, all that sort of stuff, late 90s. She was really big back in that era. Yeah, you really don't see. I've got a book of hers.
She retired. She retired, and her spot was taken over by and now I'm blanking on the name, the guy who writes all the biology textbooks, and who
Kenneth
was
Miller?
Yes. And
Okay.
I'm not sure if Kenneth Miller is still has that particular job at NCSE.
What was that group? You said there's a Center for Science Education. Let me look.
Yes.
Let's see who's in charge of the Center for Science Education. Who's in charge of that now?
Ken Miller. I know for a fact that Ken Miller took over when she retired, and I think he's still working for TSE.
Oh, that's right. The National Center for Science Education out of Oakland. Here we go. Okay. Let's see. Who's in? That was his. All right. Who's in charge? It is now Amanda Townley.
Yeah, I thought it was someone else.
I mean, as well. That's as of last year. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could have been. It was probably.
I think Ken Miller is still.
Scott was.
I think Ken
Eugenie
Miller
Scott was director, and then Anne Reed replaced her, and then Amanda Townley replaced Anne Reed.
Okay, then I'm mistaken. I thought that she mentioned at some point that Ken Miller had taken over from her in one of her talks, but could be wrong.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm sure he probably. Oh, Kenneth Miller is the president.
Yes, and she used to
the president of it. Okay.
And she used to be the president.
She was the executive director.
Oh, okay.
So he is the president. She was the executive director, and I guess he's still in charge of it. I guess. Okay. I guess he's still the president.
Yeah, because he was a part of
Naomi Orestes? Wow.
He was already part of it because that's how he ended up in Kitzmiller versus Dover, I think.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, we can keep going.
And this is simply not the case. And I don't know why evolutionists can't get their heads around this. I've been a young Earth creationist for the past 10 years, and I have seen a lot of different young Earth creationists give presentations on the creation versus evolution debate from a variety of different angles and positions. I've seen a lot of these on the internet. I saw a lot of them in person, not only when I was a videographer for the now defunct Institute for Creation Science, but I also went to the 2016 Seattle Creation Conference, where I saw a lot of different presentations in person over the span of a couple of days. And in all of my time observing young Earth creationists give these presentations on the internet, I cannot recall one time where I saw a young Earth creationist deny that one species can turn into another.
Oh,
and that's what they mean by
pause? I have had countless arguments with creationists on Twitter where they argue that there is no evidence of speciation. I've had countless arguments with these guys. Brett Keane in the freaking video says that speciation doesn't happen.
Yeah.
He literally says that.
You may want to look at your left for 1 minute. Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God. What are you talking about?
Yes.
What? Brett Keane said that in our conversation. My dude, what? Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh,
and keep in mind, if you claim that macroevolution doesn't happen, that is what you're saying. Then you're saying that species can't change into a different species. That is what that means.
Oh my God. It's like he wasn't even paying attention in our conversation. Like, what?
I mean,
anyway, okay, we can keep
it happens. So
that's called a retcon. Yes.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry. Savage blueberry chromosome crumble cobra. Good gravy. That's called a retcon. That is a retcon. Very true. Yeah. Like both RJ and I have come across very many creationists who deny speciation. Yeah, that's crazy.
Is it like a new Ben and Jerry's flavor, a blueberry chromosome crumble?
I
Blueberry
did see a Ben and Jerry's flavor based on Trump.
Oh no!
I so wish that was real, actually. Because
No, that flavor is marmalade Mussolini. That flavor.
Marmalade Mussolini. Yeah.
Marmalade Mussolini. Well, no, this had something to do with orange. I forgot what it was. I saw it passed on Twitter.
Is it the fake orange? I don't know.
But they
All right,
should
anyway, keep
definitely
going.
do that.
Solution. I've never seen that happen. Every young Earth creationist that I've ever seen give a presentation or talk about the topic that I can recall has always said that, yeah, one species can turn into another. We see that every day. Young Earth creationism
LMAO.
accounts for that. It's
Lol.
all the so-called evolution above a species level that we deny. That's what I have seen consistently over.
Sure.
Did you hear what he said?
Sure. Evolution above the species is
one
impossible?
species can turn into a different species, but it's the all the evolution above the species level is what I deny. Wait,
Yeah.
what? So one species
funny is-
turning into another species is evolution above the species level.
Well, it's at the species level.
Well,
Well, a genus or giving. Well, see, that's the thing, though, right? Is there's really no such thing as evolution above the species level. Like, you can't touch a genus. These are ways of talking about speciation given time. And I'd like to remind everyone, Answers in Genesis believes, and the Institute for Creation Research, and Creation Ministries International all acknowledge that evolution above the species level does happen because they allow for speciation within families. So they have the origin of new genera, sometimes the origin of new families within an order, depending on
Yes.
how far they're willing to go out. They acknowledge new genera can form, right? And sometimes even new
sometimes they will say that all bacteria are one kind, like
right,
all
the bacteria
are
kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if you have any idea how diverse bacteria are, that's like it's basically saying that again, to borrow one famous example, it's just like saying that pine trees and elephants are one kind. To say that all bacteria are one kind.
There is a video on my channel. So before I started my channel, I practiced on a presuppositional apologetics guy with his own radio station. And I spent 6 hours there, 5.5 hours, 2 of which I spent on how atheists can sit down on a couch without scientifically testing it first if it will hold us. So that kind of guy. And in the last half hour, which is posted on my channel, I got him to admit that animal is a kind. And so I said, so Noah had 2 animals on his boat, so he didn't have an ark, he had a rowboat, and that's when I was kicked off and blocked on Twitter. I was blocked on YouTube. I was blocked from sending emails to him, and I was blocked from sending emails to the radio station. And the fun part is that last half hour was in his playlist for the next year.
That's great.
Yes, you forgot to take it out.
So I had one of my very early debates on modern day debate back even before he was modern day debate, he was modern day hysteria, and I had a debate on there, it was like a discussion, and there were a couple other people in it. I think Steve McRae was one of them. There was somebody else, I can't remember the person's name, and then there was a creationist, and this creationist was like arguing with me about whale evolution, and I was like, okay, well, here's how I know that whales are mammals, they're descended from other mammals. We have Pachycetus, Ambulocetus, and all this. And he goes, oh, well, okay, fine. All right, so whales are, part of the mammal kind or whatever. And I was like, well, okay, well, we have all this data that mammals are descended from reptiles and, And that there's all these genetic similarities between mammals and reptiles, and morphological similarities and developmental similarities. Well, okay, fine. So mammals and reptiles are a kind. And then we just kind of kept going out like that. He just kept saying, okay, well, fine, all right, I'll throw something else in there. So it was kind of funny. He just kept increasing the size of the kind. Anyway, okay, we can keep going.
For the 10 years that I've been a young Earth creationist, observing all the different creationist apologists giving presentations. And just to prove that I understand the difference, let's do a little bit of internet research. So, when you go into Google and you type in microevolution, it says, microevolution is simply a change in gene frequency within a population. Evolution at this scale can be observed over short periods of time. For example, one generation and the next. The frequency of a gene for brown coloration in a population of beetles increases. You click on the Understanding Evolution link right below that. Takes you to the article where it says the same thing in the opening paragraph. So clearly this is evolution within a species. What about macroevolution? Well, you go to Google and you type in macroevolution, and it says macroevolution usually means the evolution of large-scale structures and traits.
Pause. Peter, can you do me a favor? Can you screenshot this picture and send it to me in Twitter, please?
Sure.
I would very much appreciate that, because if we read what is on screen right now that he pulled up, macroevolution, it usually means the evolution of large-scale structures and traits that go beyond the intraspecific variation found in microevolution, including speciation.
Yeah.
So, by the definition he pulled up, speciation is macroevolution. I just want to point this out. He pulled this up. All right, let's see how he reads this.
That goes significantly beyond the intraspecific variation found in microevolution, including speciation. In other words, macroevolution is the evolution of taxa above the species level, genera, families, orders, etc. And that is the kind of evolution that people like me dissent from, because according to the evolution paradigm of history, evolution is a...
It's literally right there. He's saying that intraspecific means within a species. That's what intraspecific means. Including speciation means the process of one species becoming another. Why are his reading skills this bad? Oh my God. Oh my goodness. Oh. Yeah, no, Ray Roard, I do not know how he doesn't understand this. I don't know. It's literally right there. He read the words. I don't know how he doesn't understand that. I don't get it.
You know what? The moment you said it's literally right there is when I posted the screenshot in your Twitter DMs.
I appreciate it, Peter.
It's literally right there.
I don't know what else to say other than he read the words, including speciation, and is still saying, I object to this, but I allow for speciation. I don't know what else to say to that. It's like, you just read it. You read the words. They passed in front of your eyeballs. You still didn't understand them.
Can I just say that he probably learned from the best, because you know who's great at doing stuff like that? Kent Hovind.
Kent Hovind? Yeah.
He has slides that debunk his arguments. He will show those in a debate, or when he's doing he doesn't give a talk anymore because churches won't have him. But yes, this is a Kent Hovind thing. So we'll continue.
Actually, okay. Hold on. Well, Origami Swami makes a good point. Maybe he's reading including speciation to mean that speciation is included in the intraspecific variation found in microevolution. That could be the case. it could simply be the case that he thinks speciation is intraspecific. That could be possible. It's not. That'd be interspecific, right? So that could be the case. It could just be he's misreading it, and it's a simple misunderstanding. That's totally possible. So
And it's also I also give him some leeway because the sentence structure can be interpreted either way. Like again, you can interpret the including speciation as referring to the intraspecific variation, or you can say that speciation is an example of macroevolution. It's very ambiguous the way it's worded.
yeah, it's not particularly great. So all right, fine. We'll give him a little bit of leeway.
It
Also,
is kind of telling.
It's Wikipedia. It's also
what?
Wikipedia, yeah.
It is kind of telling that he highlighted part of that and stopped exactly in front of including speciation.
Although, if you read the article, if you read the Wikipedia article, accordingly, Filipchenko restricted Darwinian microevolution evolutionary changes within the boundary of a given species that may lead to different races or subspecies at most. Yeah. By contrast, he referred to macroevolution That is kind of confusing. You know what? We'll give it to him. It is a little weird. Also, well, see, in this, they're saying, if you scroll down a bit, first discovered, but also new macroevolution is reducible macroevolution to select traits over periods of time. Some scholars argue the selection can happen. Oh, okay, fine. We'll give it to him. How about that? Okay. But macroevolution means genetic change at or above the level of species, which, as we said earlier, it's not really such a thing as above the level of species, because species are the only things that like physically exist. Genera don't exist, orders don't exist, families don't exist, etc. So species are really the only thing that exists. So the formation of new species
one can also make the argument that species also don't exist, but yeah, at least species have somewhat of a definition, like a very fuzzy definition, but still, it's at least better than what counts as a genera or a family. Yes, because those are just arbitrary designations. Yeah.
You know what? At some point, I'd like to actually. I wonder if. Well, let's see. Here's what is macroevolution on the papers. For 3 separations. Yeah. So anyway, so microevolution is below the level of species. Macroevolution is genetic change at the level of species, basically at and above. Okay. So, I'd like to read at some point the variability and variation. I wonder if that's available. I wonder if I could access that. That would be very neat. I don't know if I can. I'm going to look up at some point, see if I can find that 1927 work, see if it's available, because that'd be kind of cool. All right, let's keep on going.
In all fairness, I do want to give TTOR a little bit of credit because a few days ago, I had an interaction with a creationist who kept saying that Google was a source. I asked him where he got...
Google was a source?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a standing question with him. He thinks that every single dog is created. So I asked him when the Dalmatian was created, where it was created, and how it was created. And he comes up with, well, Google says, and I immediately interrupted and I said, Google doesn't say, because Google only says what other people say. So you have to cite the source that Google says is the source. And he doesn't understand that. He says Google is the source. And I've spent half an hour trying to figure out how that works. But yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But God created every single dog breed separately. After the flood, no less. So, there's that.
process takes so long to occur that nobody can live long enough to see it happen in action, which means nobody can write it down as a historical occurrence.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt again because you and him talked about an experiment in which we could see things happen within a lifetime. And you also talked about
True.
the fact that it was also observed in nature. So no, it doesn't exceed the human lifespan. And you went over that ad nauseum.
Yeah. That's right, because yes, I do remember he brought that up.
Yes.
Because I know Dawkins has said that in some books, and I did not like that when I read it. However, he does kind of fix it. He says that in some of his older books. He does fix it in The Greatest Show on Earth. He talks about, he has like a chapter or a subchapter that's like titled Before Our Very Eyes, where he goes over like evolution experiments. So he does actually talk about examples of like recent evolution or evolution during the lifetime of people. So so he does get better about that. But yeah, his older works are like, yes, evolution takes way too long for anybody to possibly see. And it's like
Also, DM Jurassic Park was a documentary wing. I have spent time with a creationist, which I no longer will interact with, who has confirmed that, according to ChatGPT, Genesis is correct and evolution is wrong, because ChatGPT told him that he was right about his opinions about that. I'm not kidding.
I do also need to read Savage Blueberry Chromosome Crumble for $1.99 says Google et al. 2024. Correct.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah, I guess the more I'm looking at this, the more that I think it is a very weird sentence. I don't know. It's a weird sentence.
Yeah, but not a
I
super chat.
guess I can understand how he could have. I guess I can understand how he would think the intra. Well, see, the word there that throws it off is intra-specific. Artemis brain sample for $2 says ad infinitum ridiculata. Okay, thank you. But yeah, it's the thing that throws off the interpretation of microevolution, including speciation, is the word intraspecific variation in there. But he might not know what intraspecific means. So if he doesn't know what intraspecific means, then that might be why.
Big words, Jackson. Big words.
That's possible. Although I don't like that it says. See, it says that. It says the first sentence says the large scale structures and traits that go beyond the intraspecific variation found in microevolution. And then it says evolution or microevolution is the evolution taxa above the species level. And I don't like that, the way that that's phrased, because it says it's above intraspecific, but then doesn't include species. So like,
it's very garbled. Like in one sentence, you can see like, oh, the speciation is just included, but then the next sentence apparently it excludes it. It's really odd. Yeah,
it is kind of weird. Okay. All right. Anyway, we can keep
going. Which is why you shouldn't look up scientific definitions on Wikipedia.
I mean, Wikipedia is decent for the most part.
It's decent, but it's not always accurate when it comes to scientific definitions.
It can be, yeah. I suppose it can be.
Nobody can set up an experiment to verify that this is indeed a naturally occurring phenomena. In other words, macroevolution is not scientific at all. And it's not even really historical at all.
No one can set up an experiment and then prove that it is a natural thing. I mean, no one can set up an aquarium and then put fish in it and simulate nature. You can't do that, Jackson?
No, You can't. Sorry. Okay. So one of the I keep looking at this because I'm trying to figure out like why it says I am spending way too much time looking at this macroevolution Wikipedia page. But one of the citations for that first sentence, the only one that's like so there's a theory of evolution above the species level from 1975, and the more recent paper from 2020 is what is macroevolution. And that one says in the abstract, the process of morphological transformation is microevolutionary, but the variation among species that it produces is macroevolutionary, as is the rate at which speciation occurs. So the citation is that speciation is macroevolution. That's the citation for it. Okay.
I'm also looking up like older versions of this Wikipedia article.
Yeah.
And older versions, a couple of years ago, older versions have the same citations included in the first paragraph, but then your more recent versions only added the such as speciation in brackets. This is the only change. So the same citations, but the only change is such as speciation. So apparently somebody added the such as speciation without any additional citation for that. So it's
weird. I don't like it. I mean, it's weird. If they just paraphrase the actual citations, it would be less weird. But anyway, okay. I'm sorry. I'm spending way too much time on this. All right, we can keep going.
Because no one was around to see it happen and make a record of it. You click on the macroevolution Wikipedia entry, which is where this comes from, and you see the opening paragraph from there is what Google went with. Then, of course, you go to the Understanding Evolution website, and it gives basically the same analysis about macroevolution, which means it's referring to evolution above the species level. So as you guys can see, creationists like myself, we know what we're talking about.
No, you really don't.
The kind of evolution we're denying. We do not reject the idea that a species can turn
Peter,
into another.
I kind of appreciate that he at least says denying. Like that is really what he's doing. He is just denying. It's not like he's doing it for evidential reasons. He just is denying it. So yeah. I was also looking at the other paper, the paper that was a lot older. That was the first citation. Okay, but see, this also says the same thing. Here, quote. In reaction to the arguments of macromutationists who opposed neo-Darwinism, modern evolutionists have forcefully asserted that the process of natural selection is responsible for both microevolution, or evolution within the species, and evolution above the species level, which is also known as macroevolution or transspecific evolution. So they're saying the same thing. It's saying that speciation is included as macroevolution. These are all saying the same thing. It's just this first definition on the Wikipedia page is saying something different.
Is that from the citation a theory of evolution above the species level?
Yeah, so that one's talking about species selection, and that's from the intro that I just read, the introduction. Which, okay. Very weird. I don't know why. It's like it has these citations that says one thing, but then the actual Wikipedia page itself says something different. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, it seems to me like again, if you look up the older versions, it seems that the citations they are the same citations. It's just somebody like maybe several people like makes tiny edits like that, even though it gives the same citations, but the meaning of the sentence structure just changes slightly. It's really odd, yeah, to say the least. But yeah, I think we don't need to get too hung up.
Sorry, I keep looking at it. I don't like it. So,
but it's just the Wikipedia article is being very unclear about this. So that's the only thing I will say about
that. All right, yeah, we can keep going.
Continue.
Yes, please.
Species within a genera, within a family over time. That's what we observe. That's the only kind of evolution you observe. But evolution doesn't just teach that species change over time, it teaches that one family can turn into another family over time. And that's something that we absolutely reject. So why do people like Jackson Wheat keep coming back to this narrative of, oh, creationists reject the idea of changes within a species, which is clearly something creationists like myself are not rejecting at all.
Because Brett King did.
The reason why they do it is because people like Jackson Wheat, they believe that if you see microevolution happen, then macroevolution absolutely follows, even if no one ever lives long enough to see it happen in action. So, if I deny that macroevolution occurs, then I'm essentially denying microevolution by extension, no matter how many times I say that I accept microevolution, or at least the concept of it. It doesn't matter how much I proclaim to accept it if I reject macroevolution, because you see, the evolutionary worldview is a dogma. And evolutionists like Jackson Wheat, they are very dogmatic about their beliefs, and they're very zealous about defending their beliefs, and they're very zealous about debunking anyone who dares to contradict those beliefs that they hold.
So it doesn't matter
Hence
that Brett
why
literally said speciation doesn't happen. That doesn't matter. Okay, cool. Just making sure. Just making sure.
Responds to people like me. Well, folks, those are my initial thoughts on my recent conversation with the atheist evolutionist content creator, Jackson Wheat.
All right, so
and if you enjoyed watching this video, well, then I would encourage you to leave your like.
He's done. Okay. All right, so my thought on this discussion was it was largely pointless. I'm glad that he's not anti-Semitic. That's great. Glad to hear it. But the actual evolution stuff...
At least one W. At least one W.
At least one... What?
At least one W. At least one win.
Oh, at least one win, yes. That's true, yes. So, okay, that's great. Good job. But like the actual evolution part, he had like nothing to say about anything that I brought up. He got mad that I refuted Brett's terrible analogy. He just had nothing. He does not know anything about any of these subjects. And like, that's fine, man. It's fine to not know anything about these subjects, but you can't have super strong opinions on them and not know anything about them. Like, that's just not how that works. But I guess that's creationism for you. That's my opinion on that. You can watch the debate. I posted it here, so decide for yourself, I guess. I don't know. Blueberry chromosome crumble cobra for $1.99 says that's unwelcome nuance. True.
Yeah, I did leave that last part in because he says that people need to subscribe to this channel. So yeah, please do subscribe to this channel.
Please do subscribe to me. Yes. Your favorite Jackson. Yeah, yes. That is unwelcome nuance. He does not want me to not say that that whales evolved into dogs, which evolved into whale. That's I don't want to hear that. Which okay. We got about 25 minutes left, so we want to watch the Catholic creationists, get a little bit further in that.
Let's do.
All right, let's do it. Yeah.
You're not allowed to make that kind of extrapolation.
He's claiming, he said that, well, of course, if they're hermetically sealed, that soft tissue can last for millions of years, but there's no proof for that except for the samples.
The fact that they're hermetically sealed,
right?
Like, it just doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, it's an after-the-fact explanation designed to explain an anomalous finding in keeping with the worldview.
Right. Couldn't be the fact that we just find them sealed.
For reference, this is just after the part where they criticized the work of Mary Schweitzer, who actually found that was the case. So I mean, that's what they're replying to.
They literally found that the quote soft tissue, the biomolecules were like completely encased in minerals. That's what they found.
And
That's why they had to dissolve the minerals.
Yeah, they had to dissolve it in weak acid. For like how long? For days, I
Yeah,
think.
days or like a week, something like that. But
Yeah.
if you have to dissolve the minerals with a weak acid, then it was encased in the minerals. That's literally what that means. So the I don't understand well, they're just coming up with no, it was like the bones were bleeding when you broke into them.
Yeah.
That's what happened, obviously. Idiots.
But she is touching on one thing that you can, like, she says that, like, oh, this is an explanation after the fact. Well, that can happen. Sorry, I got something in my throat for 1 second. But that can happen. Like, one famous example is the orbit of Uranus. The orbit of Uranus did not match the expectations of Newtonian gravity. So what they proposed was a new planet beyond the orbit of Uranus, which was Neptune. And that was eventually found, because it's an explanation after the fact. Like, oh, something didn't match with the predictions, so you come up with an explanation. And that explanation was potentially testable. So as long as your what we call an auxiliary hypothesis is called. It's an additional hypothesis that accounts for a discrepancy in your observations, basically. So as long you can come up with an auxiliary hypothesis as long as the auxiliary hypothesis is testable. And of course, Mary Schweitzer actually tested her hypothesis about how these things can be preserved. She does the work.
Artemis brain sample for $2. Do chickens taste more like dog or cat? And then and the answer to that is I don't know. I've, to my knowledge, never tasted dog or cat. And also Artemis brain sample for $2. Do chickens taste more like Uranus or mine? Thank you.
Having Artie around is always a pleasure. Okay, continue.
Yes.
Which is the same thing that endosymbiotic theory is, this idea that somehow the mitochondria is bacteria that was once upon a time swallowed by a eukaryote and it just didn't get digested, and now it's symbiotically living with a cell, and that's how we got eukaryotes. It's an explanation that's after the fact to explain something that they can't explain.
Pause. I mean, the fact that the endosymbiotic event occurred 2 billion years ago, yeah, that would mean that this is after the fact. I mean, yeah, you're not predicting the endosymbiotic event. That's
but your honor, the murder investigation happened after the murder happened, sir.
Right, exactly. Yeah. How can you try my client? The murder has already happened. Oh. That's a new one. I've never heard that one before. What I'm sure she actually means is that, is that what she means? I was going to say no, because that would imply the endosymbiotic event. I'm not sure what she means then, because what I was going to say is maybe she means that the mitochondria, well, I guess what she means is the mitochondria has unusual characteristics relative to our other organelles, and endosymbiosis was proposed to explain that in terms of a former cell being swallowed by a larger cell and then being incorporated into that, which I guess that's what she means. However, what you have to remember is the facts in favor of the endosymbiotic hypothesis are, like, one, that both mitochondria and chloroplasts still have a genome, and that it's bacterial.
It's a bacterial genome.
It's literally just a bacterial genome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a plasmid, like a circular genome, and yeah.
Yeah, it's literally just a bacterial genome. Like, that's all it is. Like, if you there was a bit of debate over whether mitochondria were endosymbiotic after Lynn Margulis first published, but the chloroplast connection was accepted immediately, because pretty much everybody who looked at chloroplast was like, these look a lot like cyanobacteria, like what is it, Glio margarita, I think. And they were like, "Hey, these look pretty close." So for
I think it's because like the photosynthesis mechanisms, it has a very particular structure, even
Right.
within cyanobacteria, which was preserved also in the chloroplast to function for photosynthesis. So so in a way, the mitochondria have like simplified,
right,
morphologically speaking, compared to bacteria, but the chloroplast really has conserved that structure, like the thylakoids and such. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it's like it was very obvious that that these were, and in fact, she wasn't even the first person to propose that chloroplasts are the descendants of cyanobacteria. That had been done. There were some Russian papers from like the 20s or 30s that had also proposed that, but nobody had really caught on to that. So so yeah, like this idea is or the fact that the start codon for both chloroplasts and for mitochondria is the letter N dash formyl methionine, like bacteria, unlike eukaryotes. The fact that none of our other organelles have their own genomes, the fact that none of our organelles have their own ribosomes, like it is like the endosymbiotic hypothesis is by far the strongest hypothesis for the origin of mitochondria and chloroplasts. Like there's nothing that comes anywhere close.
Yeah.
I guess she would just say God just made it that way because reasons, I guess. Which okay, whatever. I don't care.
That would be an untestable auxiliary hypothesis that I mentioned before. Like as long as your auxiliary hypothesis is testable, then we can talk about something. But in that case, like, oh, God just made it that way to look like bacteria, apparently. Like there's no way you can test that hypothesis.
Oh,
There's
and
no way to
RJ
do that.
points out, and we can see examples of this process occurring in living organisms. Yeah, Pollinella has a different type of cyanobacteria as its chloroplast, as its plastids, I guess you might say, as its plastids, that is not the same as the like land plants and algae and
Oh, I think it's still a chloroplast, right? Like, because a plastid is the general category, and subsets are chloroplasts, which perform photosynthesis, and you also have other types of plastids. And I forget.
Yeah, I guess if we're just saying that
Oh, yeah,
chloroplast is
you also have chromoplasts. Chromoplasts are only producing like pigments.
Well, yeah, and then there's leucoplasts and epicoplasts
Yeah.
and all that sort of stuff. I was just thinking, like, would you call that? You know, I guess if it's a plastid that's doing photosynthesis, it's just chloroplast, regardless of the ancestry. It's just kind of the general term for it.
Yeah, but I think so. I think it doesn't depend on ancestry, if I recall correctly. Yeah.
So the chloroplast for Pollinella is a Senecacoccus instead of a Gliomargarita relative, and so we literally have a different endosymbiotic event, which I guess would I guess God would be like, wouldn't it be funny if like one particular protist had a different chloroplast? Also, Artemis Brain Sample for $2 says, not an opinion, but flammable or inflammable. I prefer to say flammable, but that's just me. Even though they mean the same thing. So inflammable just sounds wrong to me. I don't know why. Okay, anyway.
I also have a question that is completely unrelated to the topic that we're talking about. But does anyone know who the pink-haired guy in the sunglasses on the flag is? Because ever since I talked to
who?
Ever since I talked to a creationist who had a what he thought was a great figurine of two praying hands, and then I had to point out to him that if it is made out of silicone and it has a suction cup, it's not a figurine. I always look what people. Yes, that happened. And it's been a long time ago, but it's still something that haunts me in my dreams every once in a while.
Okay.
It did look kind of like two praying hands, but yeah, if it's made out of silicone and it has a suction cup, it's not praying hands.
Oh man,
I'm just
sad.
But no, I'm just looking at the guy on the flag. I have no clue what that flag is for and who's in it. Maybe
The
I'm mistaken.
flag?
Yes, behind
Oh,
the
you're talking
woman.
about behind Pamela?
Well,
Yes.
behind her. Oh, you mean?
Oh, I had no idea what you were talking about. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's a
I
pink-haired
also
guy
I
in
don't know.
sunglasses.
Is it? Let's see. Blue or teal, blue green, whatever call it. Blue green flag, white stripe or white cross. Green flag, white cross. None of these images. None of these. I have no idea. I don't see any. None of these flags I'm looking up look like it.
Just see, I can't stop looking at it. Maybe it's because of my attention deficit disorder, but those are my squirrels. Things in the background. Sorry. Shall we continue?
No, you're fine. That's
Actually, we have the 10 or 13 more
sure.
minutes.
Let's just do a let's do a little bit more.
Their paradigm in any other way. There's no actual evidence that happened. But
Okay.
The explanation is done after
Okay.
the fact. It's you can make it kind of fit the evidence perfectly. Yes, the logical fallacy, post hoc ergo propter hoc.
Are we gonna actually talk about the evidence?
That's
or
not.
So-
That's
no?
oh my god.
we hear
that's
we
not.
hear this all the time. We hear
Pause for a moment. Like post hoc ergo propter hoc is the fallacy of something happened after this, therefore it happened because of this. That's the fallacy. It does not apply here. Like they think they are being clever. They're like, oh, I know the Latin phrase for this fallacy, but this fallacy doesn't apply at all. Like what they're referring to is an ad hoc fallacy, an ad hoc explanation. That's what they mean to say in this situation.
Right. If they were even using that correctly, which they aren't, but even if they were, because what she's talking about is a hypothesis. She's talking about a scientific hypothesis as an explanation for why mitochondria and chloroplasts have the characteristics they do, which that's just what science does. It provides testable explanations for things. Like, what do you want? I don't know. Who is she again? Like, I don't know who any of these people are. I don't know if anyone has any actual degrees.
I'm not
Pamela,
familiar with any of these people.
Acker. What is... The first thing that comes up when you look up Pamela Acker's vaccines, what you need to know. Ruh-roh.
Well, of course. I mean...
Of course. Why does that not surprise me? Top 10 2021 Pamela Acker. Okay, here we go. Saying no to vaccines dependent on abortion. Oh, cool. Cool. Not crazy at all. Okay.
Say no to vaccines dependent on abortion.
That's what it says.
Is she referring to that vaccines are have been developed using like stem cells or something?
Probably. That's probably. So she has a master's degree.
It might be adrenochrome. I'm not but is that adrenochrome?
So she's a medical researcher with a master's degree in biology. That's right. She did say that, didn't she? She said she worked in like a lab at the beginning of this, and then she like transferred out of the lab because they were doing tests with like embryonic tissue, and she was like, I can't do that. I think I remember her saying that. Yeah. The same Pam Acker that Dapper did. Did Dapper do a series on her? Did he? I have no idea. He may have. Hold on. Let's look it up. Did Dapper do YouTube? Pam Acker Dapper Dinosaur. Sure enough, he sure did. Wait, he didn't do this video, did he? Did he do this video? Are we watching a video that he did also? He already covered? Nope. No, okay. So she gave... Okay, I see. So she gave a lecture on creationism, and he responded to that. Okay, that makes me feel better. I was like, no, don't tell me we're stealing Dapper Dinosaur content. Okay, sorry. Anyway, we can keep going.
Our DNA is a 98% match to chimps.
True.
Now,
I have a lot to
it
say
just
about that.
it sounds wild.
I
to
bet
me
you don't.
Or
when
it's
you-
or
when
it's
you hear
not or
that,
it's 96 if you
because
count the
they're
indels.
almost programming you to think that like chimps are on the verge of
Becoming man.
evolving themselves to becoming human or something. Is
No?
there any truth? Like,
No.
what is the actual truth behind that 98%
Nope.
number?
Okay, so
Nope.
the
Wait,
there's
pause. I want
lot
to
of
make a
things.
prediction.
That's
I want to
that's
make a prediction. I'm making a prediction that she's gonna
Oh,
pull.
oh, oh.
What? I'm gonna say she's
I know.
gonna
Go ahead.
pull the who was the guy? Erica did a whole video or a series of videos on him.
Tompkins.
Tompkins. She's gonna pull a Tompkins and say it's actually like
Yes.
72%. That's like
I think you're right. Yeah.
I can feel it in my bones. I can feel it in my bones. That's what she's gonna say. Let's hear it.
Drum roll, please.
Also, chimps evolving into humans is like saying your cousin is evolving into your brother. It's not how that works.
Yeah. It's kind of silly.
About that, and I will. So, the original 98% figure was based on your genes. So your genes are 98% similar to chimps, roughly,
and also the non-coding regions.
Hypothesis. Now, your genes constitute 2% of your DNA. So far, we're like 1.96% similar to chimps. So that's
as well as the non-coding regions.
Yeah.
And then the original estimates that were given in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences and then in Nature were that we were actually somewhere between roughly 4% and 13% different from chimps, which means that we're 96% similar or 87% similar, somewhere in there. And what people don't realize is that even at only 4% different, that difference is 117 million base pairs. It's 117 million letters in our.
Savage Blueberry Chromosome Crumble Cobra for $1.99 says, I smell Tompkins. Oh, I smell Tompkins. The 87%, that's a Tompkins figure. 96 is, as Nestling said, if you include indels, it like goes to 96. However, what that also means is that number also drops for all other species pairs. Right? You have to remember that. If it drops for us compared to chimps, it drops for all species pairs across the board. 87 is just wrong. Like, that's just a wrong number. That I don't know what else to say to that. She's just wrong. Anyway, all right, let's keep going.
Genetic code. And that's a big number. So to put it in perspective, the average 8.5 by 11 inch piece of paper holds about 4,000 letters. So it takes 29,250 pages to record all of the differences between humans and chimps. And
this
that's
has nothing to do with anything.
Pages than Father Ripperger's written in his entire lifetime.
Okay. So wait, but would you be like, how much in common would we have with a different animal?
Well, 50% of your genes are in common with a banana.
That's not true.
So you're 50% similar to a banana. So that's your starting point.
But what does that even? Wait. Okay. First of all, that's not
the starting point.
That's not true. I don't think there are any like actual. I'm not aware of any papers that actually do the due diligence of figuring out whether that number is even true or not. I know Dawkins has said it and it's been spread around a lot, but I don't actually think there's a source for it. I don't think there is.
Are like 50% of our like protein coding genes? Do they have homologs present in bananas?
Right.
Like, I'm not sure what it means. Like,
exactly.
does it refer to the number of genes that are homologous to bananas, or does it refer to the sequence similarity compared to bananas? Like, I'm not sure what it refers to. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. This number is meaningless. This like humans are 50% related to a banana. Like that. This doesn't mean anything. It's a meaningless number. And people say it a lot. That doesn't mean anything. Literally no citation for it. Also, what she's doing is she's just saying this, and then she laughs about it because she's like, haha, well, no one believes that, so of course it doesn't matter. Like, what? Like that's not relevant. Even if it were true that we shared 50% of our DNA with banana plants, that has no bearing on the fact of common ancestry. Like, that's you laughing about it doesn't mean anything. Like, it's not an argument. Laughter is not an argument. So,
but this is something that they will never do. Like, they always only talk about humans versus chimps or humans versus a different animal, but they will never compare two animals that they believe are related to each other. Because, for example, if you would compare the genomes of mice to rats in the same way that you compare humans to chimpanzees, then mice and rats are more different from one another than humans and chimps are. Regardless what methodology you use, regardless what mathematic you use, mice and rats are more different than humans are from chimps.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, true. Also, Artemis Brain Sample for $2 says, "How is she not Edith Ann from Laugh-In?" I'm afraid that's a reference that goes over my head. Sorry.
Yeah,
I appreciate it though.
So what I did notice is that she probably has been watching this show, Jackson. Because earlier in the show, I had a bird that I called Pineapple, and you said if you take the bee away from bananas, you get a pineapple. And so we were talking about an animal called Pineapple, and this guy asked, let's say, how many DNA do we have? Do we share with another animal? And she comes up with a banana. I was not aware that a banana was an animal. I do know that the banana plants are the only ones that walk, because
they walk to get away from Ray Comfort. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. That's my hypothesis. That has not been verified, so that's not a theory yet. But that was my hypothesis. But yeah, banana plants actually walk. That has been confirmed.
I think she's doing that for the same reason Kent Hovind says, "But you believe you're descended or that you're related to a mosquito." Like, that's not an argument. It just isn't. You laughing about that or being incredulous, having the incredulous stare, does not. It has no bearing on the theory itself. Like, sorry. Okay, well, anyway, we are. I guess we'll call it for today because we're at 8:59 my time. So
in your like the thing you mentioned about Kent Hovind just dismissing an argument like you believe that you related to a mosquito. That's an appeal to the stone fallacy. So you just dismissing a position because you find it ridiculous. That's only the only thing you appeal to. Yeah,
right. I find it hilarious, Neslik, that you mentioned Kent Hovind and a stone fallacy in one sentence, considering Hovind is the guy who keeps claiming that atheists claim you came from a rock. That should be the stone fallacy.
I'm still a rock. I didn't just come from a rock. I am a rock.
Hey,
and I like to rock.
My name is Peter. Do I need to say more?
That's fair.
See?
So, okay. So today we had some silliness with TTOR and
only took us an hour and 15 minutes to get through a 15-minute video.
I did. I said it would be short and I was wrong. We'll continue with Pam failing to understand biology generally in the next episode. So thanks everybody for watching, and we will see all of you next week.
One question.
Okay.
When is TTOR coming to your channel to talk about evolution?
Whenever he's not busy.
Because
whenever he's not busy.
I do recall that you invited him, and then he said, "Well, I will go on your channel if you come on my channel first."
Well, he said he was busy, and I mean, people are busy. They have busy schedules. I'm fine with that. It takes
he wasn't too busy to have you on his channel.
Well, I mean, we worked out a time like 3 weeks in advance, something like that. It's like people schedule. It's fine. I'm not worried about it. It's fine. Okay. Anyway, all right. Thank you everybody for watching, and we will see everybody next week. So bye, everybody.
Bye all.